Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. In today's video we're going to be focusing on a VR stress test. I'll be using all ultra settings in VR and PC. I've chosen New York City as the location for this demonstration. The reason I've chosen New York City is because it's so demanding on the system and I want to really push it with this stress test. The main reason I made this video is to document the performance of my PC using all ultra settings in VR mode over New York City. And I'm kind of using it as like a journal, so I can keep those settings and keep the performance on record. So when I do get the update on the 27th of July, like everyone else, I can make some comparisons with this system and this setup and compare it to how it worked before the update comes out. And we can see just how much the performance will increase with the upcoming update. So I'll just take some time to go through my settings. I'm using driver 471.11 as the latest NVIDIA driver. Here are my NVIDIA control panel settings. HAGS is off. Game mode is off. And here are my PC settings. I've got the render scaling set to 200 as well as everything else set to ultra, and terrain and objects level of detail are also set to 200. Here you can see the OpenXR developer tool is set to custom render scale of 100% with motion reprojection disabled. And here you can see in the VR settings I've set the render scaling to 100. I've set everything else to ultra, but I've set the terrain and object level of detail to 150. Anything above that and it really won't run. So as far as the stress test goes, that's the only thing that's not completely maxed out, but everything else is. And you can see ultra's been selected wherever available. Here you can see we have the first demonstration, and I'm flying a Boeing 747-8 Intercontinental at low altitude. I'm using scattered clouds throughout the demonstrations to make everything even. So as you can see, performance isn't great. It's okay, it's just playable, but I would never choose to play it like this, obviously. I'm just doing this for the stress test. So just got to make sure I stress that point, is that I don't actually use these when I'm playing the game. It's just to show how much the system can handle in VR. So the frame rates are around mid-20s throughout. It does drop down to around 19, 18 at some points. But you can see I'm really low, and I'm doing that on purpose, so it really pushes the system, and you can see the buildings are really close to us. And you can see in the actual image here that there is stutter happening. So I am getting micro stutters, especially on the ground. I wouldn't expect it to run that well with these settings, especially over New York in an airliner. At least it runs and it's not crashing to desktop. I'm not getting any other problems with it so far. So that's the airliner over Manhattan with an average FPS of around 21, 22 and with some definite stuttering. But again, I'm happy it's actually running it and not crashing out. For some reason when I reach Central Park the frames drop. I'm not sure why, maybe it's got something to do with the modelling. So as we come to the end of the first demonstration, it's not a surprise that the performance is quite average. It makes me wonder how much more performance we're going to get with the update coming at the end of the month, and I'm really excited to see this and compare this with that once it's updated. So for this specific aircraft over this specific location, an increase of around 20 to 30 FPS would be amazing, because then it would run so smoothly like it does in other areas. And here we are in the second demonstration, flying an AVIAT Pitts Special S2S in exactly the same weather conditions and flying pretty much the same path over the city. I'm flying low so it stresses the system with the buildings going by. And you can see the FPS is in the high 20s. So it does give a smooth experience, however you can see the occasional stutter. So it's far from ideal. You can see the difference is clear between this and the airliner. Again, no real surprises in terms of performance improvements with the smaller aircraft. I'm actually quite happy with the way it's performing with these settings in this environment, because you can see it's definitely flyable. Again, with the update coming in, I'm really excited to see how much this can be pushed in terms of frame rates and performance. One of the reasons why I think this is performing quite well now is because I can really feel the turbulence, and I get a real sense of how the aircraft is jostling around as I fly past the buildings. So the small movements are still quite smooth, but you can see as I turn my head, the bigger movements are the things that are slightly stuttering. Now adding another 20 FPS to this would definitely sort out that stuttering, just like it does now when I'm dialed in with my good settings, but obviously they're not all on ultra. And for the final demonstration of this stress test in VR, I'll be using the BEECHCRAFT King Air 350i. Again, scattered clouds over New York City using the same flight path. I'm flying very low like in the other demos, and you can see the frame rate is ranging from around 22 to 26 on and off. It jumps up and down a bit further than that at some points. There is enough performance to make it playable, but it's far from ideal. Remember, we are in quite a big plane over a busy area. So if you focus on the FPS counter right now, I'm flying as normal, I'm looking around in VR. This may have happened to you guys a bunch of times, and look how the FPS just drops out. You see that? It's going down from 17 to 16 to 15. And it's just dropping, and it's not coming back up. And you can see now, you can visibly see it, that I'm looking around and I'm getting the stuttering as I'm moving my head. This rarely happens to me on my system, and it's obviously an indication that it can't handle it. So I just wanted to include that in the demonstration because it's interesting to see how it just suddenly crashes out. Now, it might be a virtual memory thing, I'm not really sure, I don't really understand it. But it's a really good example of how things can go wrong. And even with this very powerful graphics card and processor, it does happen to my system as well. But up until that point, it was good performance. So these types of fixes are what we're really after for this next update, I believe. Fixing these inconsistencies in VR is probably the most important thing that they could do right now. And adding 20 or 30 frames to this would be ideal. I hope this stress test helped you see how even high-spec machines don't run everything on ultra perfectly all the time. So when the update is released, what I'll do is I'll run some more tests and I'll compare and contrast with these kinds of videos that I've done to see the differences that we're going to actually encounter in VR. I'll continue to experiment with my settings up until the update comes out, and I'll try and share some on the channel with you. I hope you found these comparisons interesting and useful. And please like and subscribe if you like the content. In the meantime, guys, take care and stay safe. And also, good luck to England against Denmark tonight in the semi-finals of the Euros.